More moves are coming for the Toronto Raptors as the team just made a decision yesterday that does have some implications in regards to how they view some of their young top prospects, as well as what's going on with that final roster spot, as especially AJ Lawson really was a standout through this year's summer league as a player that really earned that opportunity, earned that position to get on this roster full time. But now, after the moves that were made yesterday, after the reports that are coming out regarding this whole situation, we have some new insights in terms of what's likely going to happen with this final roster race that's going on here right now. So we're going to break down all of the latest reports, the moves the Raptors have made, and why more moves are incoming for this team. So lots of stuff to break down in this video, but folks, you guys have been crushing it with the support over the course of the summer. I appreciate every single one. You apologize, my voice is a little bit weird in this vid, but we're going to plow through as over 53% of our viewers have not hit the subscribe button just yet. And I got to earn those subs. I got to earn that 53% respect in order to, hit that sub button. So if you're a part of that group and you're enjoying the daily Toronto Raptors coverage, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button. But let's dive into the news because we have some updates and we have some, news regarding more moves coming. So first things first, the Toronto Raptors have waived Colin Castleton. So this is something that if anyone watched Summer League, if anyone had a look at what was going on, it's not that much of a surprise that Colin Castleton was on his way out. He really struggled in this year's Summer League. His hands seemed like they regressed from what they were at some point this season, and this is very much a sign of how the Toronto Raptors are viewing some of their guys on the roster here right now, especially Ulrich Schamche, because we saw Orlando Robinson in the mix a ton last year. Now, of course, Schamche was injured the back half of last season, but Castleton got that non-guaranteed contract going to next year with one real reason. If Schamche was proving to Bobby Webster, the front office, whoever's there, that, hey, he's not developing the right way, he's not taking those leaps that people are hoping for, then you need another center out there on the roster. If we take a look at the depth chart for this team, right, of course, you have Immanuel Quickley coming in, so that's still another insurance big man, but Castleton was more of that traditional true five out there to back up Jakob Poeltl, that if, Schamche wouldn't really be that impactful for this upcoming season, couldn't be relied upon as, a player that can get actual NBA minutes, then Castleton had a legitimate shot at making this team. But of course, over the course of Summer League, we saw Schamche really prove some of the development, and, we saw it through the G League last year, though with an injury the back half of last season, but in Summer League, no, it was not perfect, especially in that final game against the Kings, but really the first 4 games of Summer League, Schamche was outplaying Castleton, showed a lot on the defensive end, showed a lot of maturity out there on, in regards to his offensive, positioning, getting the right places, defensive, moving the right places. I thought he showed a lot of growth. Of course, it's not perfect. There was a reason we signed him to a 2-year, 2-way contract, so, we could get multiple years of development for Schamche and bring him to the next level, but basically, waiving Castleton ends up leading to, Schamche getting pushed up in the pecking order a little bit. So that's good to see. And looking at this here now, you see there's one little empty spot out there now at this point for going into this year's training camps. And, Summer League's already happened, but preseason and stuff. So why did they waive Castleton here right now? Well, Blake Murphy ended up breaking all of this down. Essentially, Castleton was on a non-guaranteed deal, so this opens up a summer camp spot for one of the Exhibit 10 contracts that he's reported that haven't officially signed. The Magic do hold Castleton's G League rights. So, a couple things here. Castleton will not be, now that he's waived by this team, he won't be back with the Toronto Raptors. His G League rights are owned by the Orlando Magic, so that means now that he's not on one of these contracts with the Raptors and, sent down the 905, whatever it is, when he's sent down the G League, if he plays for the G League, he will be with the Orlando Magic's G League affiliate. So Castleton's out, and now there are a lot of players that are going to be vying and positioning for, that official final roster position out there in this year's Summer League. Now, one of them that's pretty well set, already on an Exhibit 10 contract, but is a player that we talked about a little bit over the course of this summer and stuff, and that is David Rody, who is a guy that's had a solid NBA career. He's done some different things out there in the league, and it's a nice guy to have at the end of your roster, just competing for those minutes, even if he's going to be fighting with guys like AJ Lawson. So who the heck is David Roddy? I won't dive in the full because I made a whole video on it, but basically last season averaged 12 points, minutes per game, 5 points per game, 2.5 rebounds, 1.1 assists. He's a 6'4" power forward. He is strong. He is, he can throw his weight around out there in the paint, but, and at the power forward position. Despite being undersized, he shoots 44% on corner threes, despite shooting overall 31% from the three-point line. So an interesting player, utilized in very interesting ways. He's had multiple seasons out there in the NBA here now at this point. So a guy that has, some experience, played for the Grizzlies, the Suns, the Hawks, the Sixers, the Rockets. Not a ton of games for those final few teams, but definitely a player that has had some opportunities and has been able to, do some things out there on the basketball court, right? Like in his second season average, especially with the Grizzlies in the 48 games that he played, right, for the Grizzlies in 23 minutes of action, he was able to put up 8.4 points per game, which at 22 years old is very, very solid for a role player. So Rody is that Exhibit 10 contract that's going to be fighting the most for that final camp position, that final roster spot, and everything like that. So he's going to be competing with the A.J. Lawsons of the world and, getting in that spot. But of course, I already factored him in regards to the, current roster construction. So there's one more Exhibit 10 that's going to be out here in the mix. And this is where this next move that's going to be incoming. One of these guys getting made officially, put on the Raptors, waived and guaranteed, or, a few of these guys getting waived and then, re-signed to the GLeague squad, because that's usually what happens with Exhibit 10s. And then some people actually getting these training camp contracts and stuff. So who are the players that the Raptors do have currently under their wing? So Rody, of course, we talked about, has the Exhibit 10 deal. And Tyson Degenhart, as well as Clifford Omarui from the Summer League roster, are also on Exhibit 10 deals. So camp competition or for final roster spots, two-way churn, and Raptors 905 implications are things that are going to be happening here now at this point. So Tyson Degenhart is a guy that's, we take a look at his stats. We'll go through just to briefly touch on who these guys are. He's a player that averaged 18 points per game his final season in college. He's 6'7". He knocks down the three ball. It takes a high volume of those three-point shots, but he can score, he can rebound, he can do a lot of stuff out there on all ends of the court. So, does play a pretty bloated position for the Toronto Raptors here now at this point. So, will be a tougher avenue for him to eclipse people out here in the depth chart, right? You have, of course, RJ Barrett, Scottie Barnes, Ochai Agbaji, Gradey Dick, Jacoby Walter, Jamison Battle, Elijah Martin, AJ Lawson now on the wings, fighting for these positions. So those are all guys that he'd have to, show legitimate, hey, I deserve to be here more than these guys if he's going to get that actual roster spot. What I think is more likely is he'll be on the team and then go into the Raptors 905. The player that I think has a little bit more of an opening, especially with Castleton going out, is Omarui, who is a player that, is athletic, 6'11", has a long wingspan, in college, 8 points per game, 6.5 rebounds, but shot 73% from the field. Was really efficient, knocks down free throws at a solid rate as well. Played multiple years of college, but is a very, very athletic big man that can block shots, that can do a lot of things on both ends of the court, especially defensively. It's like a reliable threat on offense and then defensively as a rim protector. So Omarui is a guy that is very much an interesting fit there as well. But it's not just those guys that are out there in the mix, as we did have, of course, David Roddy. You do have Quincy Guaye, who is a player that's Canadian. He's been with the Raptors, system for a very long time. In the G League last season, averaged 9.5 points per game. Only 28 games played for the 905, but only 22 minutes per night. But not showing stats in the G League last year that really blow you away and say, hey, he's going to be a favorite. But this seems like an Exhibit 10 contract that has 905 implications rather than actual roster spot excitement. So there's that, 6'7", 220 pounds, close to, he's 26 years old. So not old and washed by any means, but definitely older for a guy that you're like, oh, that's a high upside prospect. So very much likely a Raptors 905 guy staying there. But basically, in all these Exhibit 10 contracts, they're structured in a way that $0 are guaranteed. If you make the roster, you get the league minimum. If you don't make the roster and agree to go to the Raptors 905, you'll have a higher salary than the usual G League salary. So the team can convert you to a two-way if they want to. So that's how the Exhibit 10s work. That's why all these players are kind of being in the mix, and we'll get into that final roster spot. Of course, this is open up things as well. If the Raptors are interested in going after a Ben Simmons or something crazy like that, but I think at this point, this is unlikely unless we get a new president of basketball operations that starts cooking things up. So we'll see how things play out. Let me know what you guys think about all this in the comment section down below. You guys have the best thing to subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Anyways, I'm signing out. Cheers.